How do living things interact in an ecosystem? Well, here we have a little list of some of these interactions, like herbivore and plants. So herbivores eat plants, predators eat prey. If you remember a food web, in the food web, there's all kinds of interactions between the herbivores and the carnivores and those living things that are eating in different patterns. Well, sometimes if you remove one of those living things, the whole food web collapses. That's a keystone species, a species that is maintaining that whole food web. Now, as a result of some of these predator-prey interactions, we have lots of adaptations, things like camouflage, or we have things that might help that prey survive. There's definitely competition sometimes between two of the same species in a population. So competition between individuals in that population. Sometimes it's between different populations in the community. They're competing for a similar resource. Sometimes that means that those living things become more specialized so that they eliminate some of that competition. And sometimes it leads to extinction, where one population can't compete and as a result becomes extinct. Symbiosis is another interaction where different organisms work together in different ways, like different kinds of relationships. So let's examine some of these interactions. We'll start with predator and prey interactions. Notice that these two populations are related. Predators eat prey. Lions eat zebras. Wolves eat moose. So you'll notice that the prey population has to be larger than the predator population. That's because at each trophic level, a lot of that energy is lost to heat. So there has to be plenty of prey in order for the predators to survive. You'll also notice that as the prey population decreases, because there's so many predators, that the predator population will crash after that because there's not enough prey to eat. So the predators are competing with one another. That means there's not enough resources. A lot of them will die of starvation or other problems or migrate away, and the predator population goes down. With a low predator population, that means the prey population can then begin to increase again. And when the prey population rises to its height, then the predator population begins to grow until the predator population will diminish that prey population, and the cycle continues in a healthy ecosystem. In these relationships, sometimes there's competition then between predators for the same prey or prey for the same producers because they're generally herbivores. Whenever there's competition, then that leads to something called the competitive exclusion principle. We see it in these single-celled organisms called paramecium. So the blue one represents one type of paramecium. It's growing in a little petri dish and it's doing just fine. The other type of paramecium, grown separately, does just fine. The population rises till it starts to level off, and together or separately, those two paramecium do just fine. But when you put them together and they're competing for the same resources, the food, the space, the light, you'll notice that the blue line goes up and the orange line goes down. That means one species outcompetes the other species for those resources. So that population stays high, the orange population stays low. Another option, though, is specialization. In the case of warblers, they have adapted to specialize. So they're all living in a tree, they're all competing for similar insects, but you'll notice that they specialize to living in separate parts of the tree. That is their niche, what they do. So they basically live in a tree, that's their habitat, but where do they live in the tree? Where do they feed on that tree? That's where it becomes more specialized. And by becoming more specialized, there's a little bit less competition. So each type of warbler can survive, and thrive. Sometimes living things interact by symbiosis. So, sim means together, bio means life. So, life together. Sometimes that relationship is mutually beneficial. That's called mutualism. Both organisms benefit. It's like the flowers benefit and the bees benefit. Commensalism means that one will benefit, but the other is completely unaffected. It doesn't even notice. So barnacles get the benefit of finding food on a whale, but a whale is so big it doesn't even notice that the barnacles are growing on its body. Parasitism is a relationship where one benefits, but the other is harmed. So a tick takes the blood from the cat, the tick benefits, but the cat doesn't benefit. The cat's harmed because it's losing blood. So there's some interactions in an ecosystem.